The air shimmered with the scent of lilies and unspoken resentments. My brother, Mark, always found a way to twist the knife, but I never imagined he'd do it on his wedding day, in front of everyone we knew. This wasn't just about family drama. It was about years of quiet contempt finally erupting, and me, Sophia, standing in the crosshairs. It felt like every slight, every dismissive comment, every time he'd minimized my efforts, had culminated in this moment, a public execution of my worth. To Mark and Eleanor, Uncle David's voice boomed, a little too loud after his third glass of champagne. Glasses clinked. Mark, beaming, squeezed Eleanor's hand, her smile fixed, a little too perfect. He stood, adjusting the lapels of his expensive suit, the one he'd bragged about for weeks. The spotlight, as always, found him. "Thank you, everyone, for coming," he began, his voice smooth, practiced. He ran a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. "It means the world to Eleanor and me to have you all here. Family, friends, those who have always believed in me." He paused, letting the words hang, a subtle dig already forming in the air. I braced myself, a familiar knot tightening in my stomach. This was his stage, and he loved to perform. "I especially want to thank my parents," he continued, gesturing to Mom and Dad, who dabbed at their eyes with handkerchiefs, "for their unwavering support, helping me achieve everything I have." His gaze swept over the room, lingering on me for a fraction of a second, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. Triumph? Pity. Then he looked away, towards the head table. "And of course my beautiful bride, Eleanor, who inspires me every day." Eleanor blushed, a picture of demure grace. My own glass felt heavy in my hand, the condensation beating on the crystal. I took a slow sip, the cheap sparkling wine doing little to calm my nerves. My cousin Lena, who sat beside me, nudged my arm. "He's going for the grand finale, isn't he?" she murmured, her eyes narrowed at Mark. Lena knew him almost as well as I did. "Always," I whispered back, my voice barely audible above the din. Mark cleared his throat, a theatrical gesture. "And then there's Sophia," he announced, his voice dropping slightly, laced with a false sincerity that made my skin crawl. The room hushed, all eyes swiveling to me. My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. "My sister. She's always done things her own way." He chuckled, a patronizing sound. "Marching to the beat of her own drum, as they say." My grip tightened on the glass. I could feel Mom's anxious gaze on me from the head table, Dad's hand resting on her arm, a silent warning. While I was busy building a career, making something of myself, Sophia chose a different path, Mark went on, his smile unwavering, but his eyes held a cold glint. She wanted to be an artist. A painter, specifically. Very noble, very romantic. He paused, letting the implication hang in the air like a noxious fume. "Of course, that doesn't exactly pay the bills, does it? Not like, a real job." A few uncomfortable titters rippled through the room. My face burned. My art, my passion, my years of struggle and dedication, reduced to a punchline, a quaint hobby. Lena squeezed my arm again, her expression a mixture of outrage and sympathy. "So, while I'm celebrating this milestone, this new chapter with Eleanor," Mark continued, spreading his arms wide, encompassing the lavish ballroom, the expensive decor, the well-dressed guests, Sophia is still finding herself. Still figuring things out. But hey, at least she's happy, right? He winked, as if sharing a private joke with the entire assembly, a joke at my expense. "Here's to Sophia. May she one day find her calling, and maybe a steady income." The forced laughter that followed felt like a physical blow. I felt naked, exposed, every insecurity I'd ever harbored about my unconventional life choice laid bare for judgment. My vision blurred. I wanted to scream, to throw my glass, to disappear. But I just sat there, frozen, a pathetic smile glued to my face, my cheeks burning. "What a jerk," Lena hissed, her voice low and furious. "I can't believe he just did that." I couldn't speak. The words were lodged somewhere in my throat, tangled with shame and fury. Just as I thought I might actually shatter, a new voice cut through the awkward silence, clear and resonant, carrying an unexpected authority. "Mark, is it?" Everyone turned. A tall, impeccably dressed woman stood near the entrance to the ballroom, a distinguished man with silver hair beside her. She radiated an aura of quiet power. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, were fixed on Mark. Mark, caught off guard, stammered, "Oh, Ms. Albright. Mr. Davies. I didn't realize you'd made it." His practiced composure vanished, replaced by a nervous flutter. He straightened his tie, his face paling slightly. Ms. Albright, a woman I vaguely recognized from articles in industry magazines, the CEO of the prestigious Albright Gallery, smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Indeed. We wouldn't miss the wedding of our newest regional director, would we, Arthur? Mr. Davies, her husband and a prominent art collector, nodded, a faint smile playing on his lips. We just arrived, Ms. Albright continued, her gaze sweeping over the room, then landing on me. And I must say, Mark, your toast was memorable. Her voice held a subtle edge that made my breath catch. Mark chuckled weakly. Just a bit of family humor, Ms. Albright. You know how siblings are. He tried to wave it off, but his confidence had evaporated. Ah, yes. Family humor. She took a step forward, her eyes still on me. But I confess, I found it rather illuminating. Especially your sister, Sophia. My heart leaped into my throat. Oh no. This was it. The public humiliation was about to escalate. My brother's new boss, the woman he'd been bragging about impressing for months, had just witnessed his cruel jab. Sophia, isn't it? Ms. Albright walked towards our table, her gaze unwavering. She held out a hand. Eleanor mentioned you were an artist. A painter. I managed to stand, my hand trembling slightly as I took hers. Her grip was firm, surprisingly warm. Yes, Ms. Albright. That's me. My voice came out a little breathy. Please call me Vivian, she corrected, her eyes assessing me. And Arthur here is quite the enthusiast for contemporary art. Mr. Davies offered a polite nod. We were hoping to have a moment with you, Sophia. Eleanor spoke very highly of your work. Said you were quite talented. Mark, who had been watching this exchange with a mixture of confusion and growing alarm, finally interjected. Eleanor's a little biased, Vivian. She's always been very supportive of Sophia's hobbies. He tried to inject his dismissive tone, but it fell flat. Vivian turned her head slowly, her gaze freezing him in place. Hobbies, Mark? Is that what you call it when someone dedicates their life to creating beauty, to expressing the inexpressible? Her voice was soft, but it carried the weight of a judge's gavel. My gallery, Mark, specializes in discovering and showcasing talent. Not hobbies, Mark's face was a mask of utter bewilderment, then dawning horror. He looked between Vivian and me, his mouth slightly agape. In fact, Vivian continued, turning back to me, her smile genuine this time, Arthur and I were particularly struck by the piece Eleanor showed us on her phone. The large canvas, Whispers of the Urban Echo. The way you captured the raw energy of the city, the juxtaposition of grit and fleeting beauty, truly remarkable. My jaw dropped. You saw that? I could barely believe it. That piece, a labor of love, a reflection of my soul, was something I'd never expected to leave my small studio, let alone be seen by someone of Vivian Albright's stature. We did, Arthur Davies confirmed, stepping closer. The brushwork, the depth of color. There's a certain melancholic optimism in it. It spoke to us. Mark stood frozen, his eyes darting wildly. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Eleanor, bless her heart, had a small, triumphant smile playing on her lips. She hadn't said a word, but her subtle rebellion against Mark's constant belittling of me was clear. We've been searching for a new artist to feature in our Emerging Voices exhibition next season, Vivian explained, her eyes sparkling. Someone with a fresh perspective, a unique vision. When Eleanor showed us your work, we knew we had found our artist. The words hung in the air, echoing the clinking of glasses, the murmur of surprised whispers. My head spun. An exhibition at the Albright Gallery? The most prestigious gallery in the city? It was a dream I'd barely dared to whisper to myself. An exhibition? I managed to croak, my voice catching. Indeed, Vivian said, her smile widening. We'd love to discuss it further with you, Sophia. Perhaps over coffee next week? We'd be honored to represent your work. She looked at Mark, a pointed arch in her eyebrow. It seems your sister has found her calling, Mark. And a rather significant income potential, wouldn't you say? The color drained from Mark's face. He looked like he'd been slapped. The room was silent now, every single guest a witness to his public humiliation, a mirror of the one he'd just inflicted on me. His parents, my mom and dad, looked utterly mortified, but also, I thought I detected, a flicker of pride in their eyes as they looked at me. Vivian, I didn't know, Mark stammered, finally finding his voice, though it sounded reedy and thin. I knew Sophia painted, but I didn't realize it was to this level. He tried to recover, to smooth it over, but it was too late. His earlier words hung in the air, a stark contrast to Vivian's pronouncement. Vivian merely raised an eyebrow. It seems there's a lot you don't know about your sister, Mark. She turned back to me, her expression softening. Sophia, we'll be in touch. Enjoy the rest of the celebration. With a final, enigmatic smile, she and Arthur moved away, leaving Mark a pale, deflated figure in the center of the room. Lena gripped my hand, her eyes wide. Sophia, oh my God! The Albright Gallery. Do you realize what this means? I could only nod, a dizzying mix of elation, shock, and a deep, simmering satisfaction washing over me. The knot in my stomach had unraveled, replaced by a lightness I hadn't felt in years. Mark, meanwhile, stood utterly still, the weight of the room's gaze pressing down on him. His perfect wedding, his perfect toast, had just imploded. He had wanted to make me small, to diminish my achievements, to highlight his own perceived superiority. Instead, he had inadvertently orchestrated the most profound validation of my life, right in front of his new boss, the woman who held his professional future in her hands. Later, as the reception wound down, Eleanor found me by the dessert table. I'm so sorry about Mark, Sophia, she said, her voice genuinely apologetic. He can be such a, well, you know. I know, I replied, a small smile playing on my lips. But thank you, Eleanor, for showing them my work. You didn't have to. She shrugged. I just thought it was beautiful. And they're always looking for new talent. I knew they'd see it. She leaned in conspiratorially. Honestly, I was getting so tired of him talking down to you. He really thinks he's superior because he makes more money. But you're creating something real, something lasting. Her words were a balm, a quiet affirmation that meant more than she knew. Mark, still reeling, tried to approach me once the crowd thinned. Sophia, about earlier. I was just joking. You know me. His voice was strained, the easy charm gone. It was just a bit of light-hearted fun. I didn't mean anything by it. Didn't you, Mark? I met his gaze, no longer flinching, no longer feeling small. Because it sounded a lot like you meant every word. It sounded like you think my life, my passion, my work, is a joke. He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. And now your new boss, the woman who holds your career in her hands, knows exactly what you think of hobbies and unsteady incomes, I said, my voice steady calm. She just offered me an exhibition at one of the most prestigious galleries in the country. And she heard you call my life's work a hobby. He swallowed hard, his eyes wide with genuine panic. Sophia, please. You have to tell her it was a misunderstanding. I can't afford to mess this up. Oh, I raised an eyebrow, a mirror of Vivian's earlier gesture. So now my hobby is important to you? When it impacts your career? He looked desperate. It's not like that. I want you to be happy, Sophia. And successful. The words sounded hollow, forced. No, Mark, I corrected him, my voice firm. You want me to be successful on your terms. You want me to fit into your neat little box. You want to be able to brag about me, or at least not be embarrassed by me. He flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? I asked, a weary sigh escaping my lips. For years you've chipped away at me. Every family dinner, every holiday, it's been a subtle jab, a backhanded compliment, a reminder that my path wasn't good enough. Today, you did it in front of everyone. You tried to make me feel like a failure on your wedding day, in front of your new boss, no less. I paused, letting the weight of my words settle between us. And now, your new boss is offering me the opportunity of a lifetime. He had no answer. He stood there, defeated, his earlier arrogance completely stripped away. The man who had always sought to diminish me now looked diminished himself. I took a deep breath, the lilies still scenting the air, but now it felt like a fragrance of victory. I don't need to explain anything to Vivian, Mark. She saw exactly what she needed to see. And I don't need your approval anymore. I never did. I walked away from him, towards the exit, towards a future that suddenly sparkled with possibility. The night air was cool on my face, a welcome contrast to the heat of the ballroom. I didn't look back. For years, I'd carried the invisible weight of his judgment, his condescension, his constant need to prove he was better. Tonight, that weight had been lifted, not by my own effort, but by his own undoing. It was a strange, bittersweet vindication, but vindication nonetheless. As I stepped out into the quiet night, the city lights shimmering like a canvas waiting for my brush, I realized I was finally free. I didn't just find my calling, I reclaimed my voice, and no one, especially not my brother, would ever silence it again.